Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I've found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Hey, my name is Coach Lee. Welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast. My guest today is Brian Schwartz. Brian is the principal of Brian Schwartz Coaching and Consultant. As a seasoned coach, mediator, facilitator, and trainer, he leads with empathy. His 20 years of experience includes leadership in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. He has a passionate commitment to intercultural understanding he gives a passionate commitment to intercultural understanding to every client he engages with. He works with his clients to create inclusive, efficient, and effective workplaces. His acute ability to see all sides of an issue has helped them facilitate diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings in settings ranging from schools to boardrooms to houses of worship, which is very impressive to move through those spaces with ease. Our conversation today will be focused on interpersonal relationships between coworkers and colleagues. Brian, welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast.
Thank you so much, Coach Lee. Glad to be here.
So glad to have you here. Very impressive moving through these kinds of spaces, which traditionally don't like to talk to each other. So I'd be curious to know, how did you gain so much empathy? What got you started on your journey and coaching and helping others?
Well, specifically in coaching, I had sort of an out-of-body experience when I was getting coached for the first time. So back in 2009, I went to a coach, and I didn't know that much about coaching, life coaching at the time.
Oh,
I knew about therapy, but I was, just trying to set goals. And then while I was talking to this person, she was great. I was like, oh, you do what I do. Like, I had been a trainer, I had been a tutor, a teacher, kind of a peer counselor, and it all sort of came together under that space. And so that got me really interested in coaching, and that's how I launched into the coaching field.
Oh, nice. So of course, I love the personal experience thing. Like, that's one thing that coaches have. I believe that coaches come from a place where I've learned something and now I want to share it, much like an educator, a trainer as you were. And so now you've taken that idea of becoming a coach and turned it into an entire business. So tell us about, who are those people that you help? Who are those people that reach out to you? What kind of issues do they have, and how do you help them?
Yeah, I think the people fall into generally two buckets. One of them is individuals, whether they're at work or outside of work, who are dealing with challenges in their life and relationships, often with their employees or their manager, sort of navigating their own energy and their own focus around how to make those relationships work the best for them and for their careers. And then the other bucket is I often get connected with CEOs or executive directors who want to bring their teams together to go for a common goal and sort of overcome conflicts that come up. And, my master's degree is in intercultural relations. So I really value everyone's perspective and how people work together and thinking about the dynamics of power in terms of identity. And so I bring that sort of lens, that equity lens to the work that I do to bring people together and have them really feel heard and valued.
That is what everything this podcast is about. Everyone wants to feel heard, understood, appreciated, and
Yes,
accepted. And
yes,
quite often in those atmospheres where you mentioned the CEOs, companies reach out to you because they want to create a more these are my words, engaging atmosphere. Essentially, they want people to do collaboration and teamwork together. It's really difficult to be in that space and be yourself because really we don't society or corporations have basically said, look, you can't be who you are, just do the job. And now we're working towards being more of who you are and enjoying the job.
yeah.
So I'd like to know, my question for you is what are some of those challenges that you face or that you see? Like a CEO calls you in and they say, hey, I need some help with my team. It just doesn't work. I don't know what to do. What's the number one thing that you notice right away?
I think the number one thing is that I find that middle managers often haven't either had enough training in middle management or aren't drawing on their inner resources, like their strengths. I think people are often thinking about what they should do, and then a crisis comes up and they're not being their authentic self. And so they're not sure how best to handle it. Like there's always going to be an employee who's disgruntled, right? So facing that sort of reality without some sort of training around it, some experience, and believing that you have the resources within that will match up with skills you can learn to help that person. I think that's the thing that's almost universal with all the organizations that I work with.
Yeah, I would say that the middle managers, they really get into a spot where they're accountable for their team's actions, but they're also beholden to their leaders, the senior leadership, and they kind of get
Yes.
stuck right there. They kind of get stuck, and they really. How do you help those? Would you? What would you? So you notice that that is the problem. That is an issue. That is a pain point. How do you tackle that?
Well, the one tip that I really give people, and I think it's in some ways it's obvious or they might have heard it before, but I don't think most people implement it, is leaning into empathy. I'm a real believer in empathetic leadership. When you're struggling with some dynamics, with what happens with your employees or your colleague or your employer, people too often don't lean into what's going on with the person you're struggling with. Can you put yourself in their shoes? Can you imagine what they're going through? Or can you even inquire about it and show that you care about them? That goes so far. A lot of times people are hesitant to do that because of other relationships they've had with people in positions of authority or what they think it is to be a boss. But if you can really get into what is going on with the other people in your immediate situation, and this really translates outside of the office as well, figuring out what it means to be empathetic, it helps in two ways. One, it really sort of eases and softens that relationship so you can deal with whatever conflict or struggle you're having. But two, it gets people out of themselves, and so their anxiety level tends to go down because they're not sort of obsessing about their own worries and fears and concerns. So leaning into empathy and demonstrating that empathetic leadership is what I encourage people to focus on.
I really like that, leaning into empathy, being a person who wasn't sure about how I could talk to my so thinking about me being in a corporate space and how I'm an
Mhm.
individual contributor and just not sure about how I can connect with my coworkers, of any capacity. I wasn't sure how I could relate to them, but leaning into empathy, having a manager say, "Hey, what's going on with you? It seems like you're doesn't seem like your work is well, or you don't seem like you're well, or you're not talking to the employees as much, or you're not as engaged with the team. What's going on?" And having that trust and being able to lean in, I think it's very important for managers to be able to do, a skill set for actually, yeah, I mean, anyone to be able to have if you're trying to connect with your coworkers. So, as we talk about interpersonal relationships with employees,
Yeah,
is that something that you teach?
absolutely. Yeah. I really focus on, you know, I loved your intro video because it speaks to the importance of that, individual connection and getting to know your coworkers on a deeper level. It doesn't mean, pushing past people's personal boundaries. I think a lot of times folks are apprehensive about, oh, maybe I shouldn't ask this or get too close to this person. And it's especially difficult in our now, often virtual world. But taking the time to get to know your colleagues and seeing what's important to them helps so much in, those relationships, in advancing your career. And it even just makes it a nicer place to work in. So yes, I go through like how to navigate the workplace, how to build up your skills. And really, once you are able to make those connections, more directly, you too will have a better time at work. Um, Often we just focus on the work itself, or we're stressed, or, frustrations with our boss, or what else we want to be doing. And there's ways to turn that around and reframe the experience, whatever situation you're in, to make it better for you. So, yes, I definitely teach that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, talking to your coworkers and getting to know them and not working with strangers is is a lot more soothing. It's like
Right?
not worrying about these people who I don't know. I don't know how they're going to behave. I don't know if they like me. I don't know anything about them. I don't believe they care about me. It's a lot more soothing to get to know if that's true or not. And
Right.
most of the time, we're just swirling around in our heads with that information. I'd like to ask you about group coaching because I understand you do group coaching. And I think it's brilliant to do group coaching because, of course, everybody gets to practice with each other. Everybody
Mhm.
gets the same kind of information. But can you tell us a bit more about your group coaching? What do you do and how do you do it?
Absolutely. So I do group coaching in, anywhere from 2 to maybe 10 people, depending on the demand at the time.
Hmm.
The reason I really like group coaching is fewfold. I love facilitation. I love working with groups. I have a background actually as an actor too, and with improv, and so I love working with groups and dynamics and kind of the what comes up and the unexpected. So I think it really fits into my skill set. Two, it's a supportive environment, that I create in a group setting. So sometimes one-on-one can be a little intense for people, or they just also need other people besides the coach, right? People can get isolated, I think, especially during and post-pandemic. So having a community to check in with, I think, can be vital. And just realistically too, it tends to be a lower price point than individual coaching. So it's more accessible to some folks to participate in that. So those are all the reasons, or at least some of the reasons I love group coaching. There's so many.
It sounds like a win-win-win all the way around. The most of the skills that I've learned as far as connection and communication, it was because I had a group of peers to practice with.
Hmm.
And it was more affordable. So it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder,
Good.
is there one thing, so we can leave our audience with some actionable step? Is there one thing that you would tell someone out there who's struggling to create a connection with their coworkers or get along with them, whether they be manager or whether they're talking to their peers, whatever kind of relationship is, what would you share with them?
Well, beyond that strategy of empathy and really trying to see what's going on with someone else, I think it's important to realize that you're not alone. So if
Mhm.
you're struggling, other people are also struggling. You are not alone. I think there's, you know, so many people who go through that sort of, do I fit in here? Why am I not being more appreciated? Um, you know, am I the only anxious one? No, you're not. There's so many people having that. Everybody's got something they're struggling with. And so remembering that in all your interactions and things you're going through will be crucial. So making those connections, and whatever way you want to do it, right? Like now we have this modern world where there's texting, there's Teams, there's phone, there's Zoom, there's in-person, there's group. There's so many things that you can go to make that connection. You can do it on your own terms, at least at first, right?
Absolutely.
And then it's easier. So realizing you're not alone, even if you feel alone, other people feel that same way. And even that connection can help grow and nurture you in a work environment, or even outside of work if you feel that same alienation.
Absolutely. It all starts with mindset. That's what I'm hearing. The mindset, the recognizing that you're not alone in this experience and there's somebody out there who's feeling the same way, or else neither of us would have jobs.
That's true. Exactly. There's a whole industry here, to help you because so many people are going through it.
Yes, absolutely. So, Brian, it was a delight to have you here and to learn more about your experiences as a coach and what you share with others. Tell them, where can they find you?
Yes, brianschwartz.org is the best place to go. There's a website about consulting and about coaching on there. I do a lot of group facilitation, as I mentioned, some mediation, teaching and training around collaborative skill sets and leadership, many things that really help people. I also have a certification in the EQI 2.0 for emotional intelligence.
Nice.
It has a 360 assessment. So go to brianschwartz.org, check out my Instagram, check out my LinkedIn. Sometimes it says Brian Daniel Schwartz. That's my full name. I have things on my blog there. And, depending on which one you go to, you get a little different parts of my personality and approach. Like I said, I was an actor and trained that way too. So I really like leaning into comedy and some fun and drama and kind of bringing out the arts in me and in you. So you have that to look forward to.
Nice. Wonderful. I love that you come out here and you show your human side, that you are something other than a facilitator. You're also an actor. Way to set an example for us. Brian, can't thank you enough for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Coach Lee.
Take care. Another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.